Things have not been going too good for Ubisoft because apparently the company's stock price just took a major hit. Now, if you recall back in July when they had their last earnings call, the stock price for Ubisoft took a 12% hit right after the earnings call because many investors were not really optimistic about the future of Ubisoft when the company was underperforming what market analysts were saying that they should actually be at. But Ubisoft was insistent after Star Wars Outlaws and then Assassin's Creed Shadows are released that the company will be making a lot more money. Well, we just got the release of Star Wars Outlaws and the stock value is continuing to go down, which indicates that the game really isn't selling too well. This coming from Game Rant, Ubisoft stock price takes a hit. That's the headline. Jumping down into the article, Ubisoft stock just took a 10% dip, which has plenty convinced that Star Wars Outlaws may not have made the dent it should have. Ubisoft has shifted into gear to build excitement for the Star Wars Outlaws X Defiant and its upcoming release, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Although the company has had a long history of great sales, the attitude towards Ubisoft has become negative in recent years, with fans sharing various opinions regarding why. I think it's kind of funny that they're talking about trying to build excitement around X Defiant and Star Wars Outlaws because those are games that are already out on the market. I mean, Star Wars Outlaws literally just came out, so you would think that this would be the time where the excitement is at its peak. So if they're trying to build up excitement surrounding a game after the launch of the game, then it just kind of indicates that the launch really wasn't as big as what they were hoping it would be. The popularity of some of Ubisoft's most recognizable titles appeared to be in a constant flux. Some gamers swear by the popularity of Assassin's Creed series, confident that no matter how much the series has changed, it will sell. I think it will sell better than some other games out there, but whether it'll be as successful as what the company needs remains to be seen. And for that, I honestly doubt that they'll sell as many as what they're hoping for. Others look to titles like X Defiant in hopes of success, since it iterates on the free-to-play shooter genre. Most recently, X Defiant player count have dropped, and people are concerned Ubisoft might need to look in a new direction altogether. Consultant Dr. Seker Toko shares that Ubisoft stock just went under 2 billion market cap, both in euros and US dollars, signaling that the company has nearly hit a 10-year low. And I got their stock price pulled up right now, and you can see where it's currently sitting at right now, $3.36 a share. And if you actually jump back to the maximum where they're talking about, 10-year time frame would have been around this point right here on it. So August of or early September of 2014, it was around $3.35 a share. So yeah, right now their stock is at about a 10-year low for them. And since they just released one of their biggest games ever, as far as how much they actually spent to produce it, this isn't where a company like Ubisoft wants to be at this time frame. In some ways, some interpret this as a reflection of the performance of Star Wars Outlaws altogether. Star Wars Outlaws is generally warmly received. That's debatable. I'll get on that in just a moment. It doesn't necessarily seem to be hitting the sales expectations that some shareholders may have for it. And just out of curiosity, I went to Metacritic just to see audience scores for it. And audience scores for it is not necessarily the best. It's warmly received, I would say, amongst critics, but 76 for critics is actually a pretty mediocre rating for it, especially since a lot of these outlets like IGN, for instance, will pretty much immediately give anything a 7 out of 10. So it's basically, if you get a 7, then it's pretty bad. And that's kind of where Star Wars Outlaws is sitting with critics. Audiences, it's much lower, which indicates that a lot of people really just don't care for the game all that much. And also, as far as sales figures go, we're hearing some reports that the sales figures just aren't as good as what they're hoping for. This report coming from that Park Place, or at least they're reporting on it. Star Wars Outlaws sales 55% lower than Star Wars Jedi Survivor in United Kingdom. According to Nintendo Life, Star Wars Outlaws topped the sales charts in the United Kingdom, besting Hogwarts Legacy, Elden Ring, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, and EA Sports FC 24. However, game industry head Christopher Dring reported launch sales are 55% lower than what Star Wars Jedi Survivor did. Of course, he even says that this isn't necessarily complete data because you don't actually have the sales figures from Ubisoft, so he's just trying to gather this from other sources right there. And in a follow-up tweet, he says, "So it turns out there may be some missing data from the physical numbers, so it's worth waiting for the end of the week when the digital stats are in," which is just true generally. However, looking at some of the stats from digital outlets and other things like that, there's indicators that suggest that the sales figures are pretty low for it. Other data points indicate that Star Wars Outlaws may not be selling that well at all. True Trophies reported in its most popular PS5 and PS4 game charts, which ended the week of September 1st, that Star Wars Outlaws placed 25th on the chart in its first week release. So just placing 25th as far as new trophies that people are unlocking in those does indicate that the game is just kind of mediocre at best, but it's also pointing out in this article that placing 25th is actually near the lower end of their chart right there. So it looking like this is actually doing worse than what average, or at least what it should be doing at this time frame of its release. For comparison, it performed worse than games such as Red Dead Redemption 2, Helldivers 2, Elden Ring, Ubisoft's own Tom Clancy Rainbow Six Siege, and Black Myth Wukong. The article then points out Craig Skitsimus, aka Stuttering Craig of the Side Scrollers podcast, actually shared a tweet about a week or so ago where he said in his tweet, "I have an insider who works for a high traffic game store in one of the most populated places in the US. They have 27 stores in the area, and there have been a total of 41 pre-orders for Star Wars Outlaws. 41. There is no hype for this game." And that might just be chalked up to just one person. We don't have any information to go off of other than he's just saying it comes from a source and other things like that. So you can take it with a pinch of salt, and I would recommend you take any anonymous reporting with a pinch of salt. But he was also correct when it came to Concord, where he was talking about how there was very little hype in actual orders for that game. And we found out that that game got pulled from live service by Sony like 2 weeks after the game launched. So he was right about how there was no hype surrounding Concord, and now he's saying there's no hype surrounding Star Wars Outlaws, and it's looking like that's actually the case for it. Furthermore, Twitch streaming data from Twitch Tracker appears to show a significant decline in the interest in the game. That's Star Wars Outlaws. Just a week after its release, the game's peak average viewership occurred during the game's 3-day early access. If you pre-order the game, the Gold or Ultimate editions, or subscribe to Ubisoft Plus, it hit an average viewership of 45,551 viewers on August 27th. It has since been in decline. On September 2nd, the average viewership was down to 6,668 viewers. So that's a pretty steep decline from the time the game just came out until just less than a week later. It seems like attention and care for this game just completely fell off a cliff, which is kind of reflected in the stock value of Ubisoft. Because just jumping back to that here, I'll just go back a month. You can see from after the game launched, it launched just before this. So this is, I think, when they said peak viewership was on August 27th. And then it's just, it just looks steeper than what it is, but it's 336 from 385. So I guess this isn't as bad if you just look at it that way, but still year to date, that's a pretty steep decline in stock value, and that is reflected in the viewership on this. As for the peak viewership, it hit a peak of 117,554 on August 26th, but like average viewership has declined since then. Most recently, its peak viewership on September 2nd was 10,977. So this isn't even necessarily to say that the game is just bad. From what I'm hearing from a lot of people defending the game too, is it's not a terrible game. It's a fine game. It's just mediocre. A lot of people would point out many of the bugs and glitches, and there's a lot of hilarious videos related to that, and that's fine. There's a lot of great games that are launched with a bunch of bugs and stuff like that. I mean, the Elden Scrolls series, those always have a bunch of bugs surrounding them, and it's part of the charm. So I'm not really gonna chastise it for that too much. People say oh, it's a broken game and stuff like that. I'm not gonna go that far, but it seems like this is just a mediocre game that Ubisoft spent too much money not only to produce, but then also to promote it. Because you got to keep in mind, this is one of those games that I think they even said they spent more promoting this game than any company has ever spent promoting a game. And that include flying out influencers to Disneyland and giving them a vacation and other stuff like that to try to butter them up before the launch of this game. And now that the game's out and general audiences are able to play it, going back to the Metacritic score, people just say it's either meh or it's not that good or there's problems with it. So this seems like a big swing and a miss for Ubisoft. Now the next one they have up is Assassin's Creed Shadows, and judging by kind of like the early words surrounding that one, it's looking like that's going to be another flop for them. Maybe not a flop as in they're going to lose a ton of money, but it's looking like that's probably going to underperform too, because at the very least, there's a lot of animosity towards the game already, even to the point where they've had to come out and apologize to Asian people for a lot of the stuff that they're doing wrong with that title and the disrespect that they actually have for the Asian culture within their game. So we'll see how that transpires, but it's looking like things are pretty bad in the near future for Ubisoft. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And if you can, click that like button and share the video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.